Hello my friends, welcome to my corner. This is the first full year that I am here on YouTube, so I decided to do a year in review video to see what this past year has been like in my reading and my film watching. Okay, so to give you a little bit of context, I read 58 books this year and I watched 106 movies. That is kind of sad for me. Okay, I used to read and to watch much more than that. I remember years when I read way over 100 books, even though I am a slow reader, but there are so many factors that go into it, right? For instance, in those years that I read so much, I did not have a job, so I had plenty of time to read. That changes everything. And also this year I read a very long work that if you have been watching my videos, you know what I'm talking about, and if not, don't worry, because I'm gonna show you in this video. So that is the context. I selected some great books, great movies, not so great books, not so great movies, and many other categories that you are about to see. So let's see what the year 2022 was like. I am not a negative person, I don't think I am, but I wanted to start with disappointments first to get that out of the way, basically. And I am very, very sad to report that one book that disappointed me was The Rat by Günter Grass. Okay, I am, as you may know, a big fan, okay, huge fan of The Tin Drum. And other than that, by Günter Grass, what I have read is Cat and Mouse. So this was my third book. I had it for a very, very long time. I was prepared to absolutely be amazed by this book, and I have to say that it did not really meet my expectations. In this book we have the character from The Tin Drum, but it felt to me that the character of Oscar was included as a way to connect this, in my opinion, weaker text with the big success that had been The Tin Drum. So I felt that it did not really, meet my expectations. Also, another book that I was very sad to, not find amazing is this one, and I read it in Spanish. I got it from the library, so I have to tell you what this is. This is Murakami's First Person Singular. I don't know, am I the only person who felt that it was a little bit flat? But please let me know. Please let me know if it's just me, and I'll give it another chance. I liked it, I enjoyed reading it, but I feel that it is not at the same level as other books by Murakami. And once again, he's another author that I am a big fan of. Let's look at movies now. The biggest disappointment to me in the realm of movies was Halloween Kills. I am a fan of Halloween. As you can see here, I have some of the movies. I have been following the franchise for a very long time, but I saw this film a few months ago probably, and I can't even tell you what it was about. It seemed like more of the same thing to me. I still need to check out the last one, okay? And I will, because once I start following something, I continue with it, no matter what. So those were my disappointments this year. There were also some pleasant surprises in 2022, and in the realm of books, that was Bruges la Mort, okay, the novel by Georges Rodenbach that some people say inspired Hitchcock's Vertigo. I did a video on that, so I'm not going to, go in depth into this novel, but as I mentioned in the other video, I read it in French, and I am not fluent in French by any means. I can read decently, but this novel, I started reading it, I just wanted to check it out, and I just continued and continued. I devoured it, so it really caught my attention, and I really loved it, and I recommend it to you because I do believe that it's a neglected masterpiece. And when it comes to movies, one of my favorites this year in terms of this, pleasant surprises type of context was Lunana, a Yak in the Classroom, a movie from Bhutan that was nominated for an Academy Award for Best International Picture. It did not win, but it was nominated. It's a really good story, okay? I highly recommend it. It's about a young man who is a teacher. He's teaching for the government, okay? So he's in a kind of program to teach. And he's a singer, he's an artist, so all he wants is to emigrate to Australia, just to get away from his country and his culture in a way, He is sent to a remote school. It's a little school that is in the middle of nowhere. and there he encounters, he experiences some things that help him to grow, and to mature as a person. Because of that idea of being sent to a place that you don't want to go, I felt that there was a connection there with Kurosawa's Redbeard, which is one of my absolute favorite movies ever. The profession is different, of course. In Redbeard, we have a doctor who has like high aspirations as to where he's going to continue working, and then he is sent to this ramshackle clinic in the middle of nowhere too. So the profession is different, but the idea is very similar, and I really enjoyed this movie. So those were my pleasant surprises. Looking at a great reread slash rewatch. Okay, so to me the great reread, and there were many of them this year, was Tove Jansson's The Summer book. I like rereading. I think it's one of the great pleasures in life, but there are so many books that I want to read, to experience for the first time, that it's difficult sometimes for me to find time to reread. This year I did a lot of rereading for my videos, so that was one example, and I really enjoyed rereading that. And when it comes to rewatching, there is one movie that just never gets old, okay? That is just a pure pleasure and delight to watch, and that is, to me, My Neighbor Totoro. Okay, so I really enjoyed rewatching this one for maybe the 4th or the 5th time. And as I said, I can watch that movie as many times as I want, and it just never ceases to amaze me and to fill me with delight. So if you have not experienced it, I urge you to do so. And also the Summer book is just incredible, so that's another book that I would recommend to you. I chose a book and a movie that I would like to reread and rewatch. Okay, this could be a good thing, it could also be a slightly negative thing, depending on how you look at it. Let me give you an example. I read Hiroko Oyamada's novella, The Hole. Okay, the one that has like grass on the cover? It won the Akutagawa Prize, so I had high expectations for it. It was compared to the works of Lewis Carroll, to David Lynch, and all that. So I was like, yeah, it was actually compared to My Neighbor Totoro also, now that I think about it, because of the, Lewis Carroll, Alice in Wonderland connection. But I feel that, I don't want to say that I did not like it. I think maybe I read it when I was dealing with too many things at the same time, so that's one of the reasons why I would like to reread it, because I feel that maybe there was more to it than I realized. Okay, and I do want to say that I enjoyed reading it. It's not that I hated it or anything like that, but I just feel like I'm missing something. You know what I mean when you get that feeling that you're like, okay, I must be missing something here. And with movies, the same or similar situation for me was A Brighter Summer Day by Edward Yang, this movie from Taiwan, right? I just love his movie Yi Yi. Okay, I think that is one of the best movies ever made. I absolutely, I was blown away by it. And I have had this copy of A Brighter Summer Day for, I don't even remember how long. It's another one of those things. I do that all the time. I have a book or a movie that I'm like, oh, I want to watch this, but I'm building the anticipation. And then when I finally experience it, I find it somehow lacking, So A Brighter Summer Day is a very long movie. And I feel that maybe, I need to watch it again, maybe at a different moment when I'm like more, relaxed or something. So I do want to give it another chance to see if there's something there that I'm missing. So anyway, those were two examples of texts that I would like to reread and to rewatch. A challenge can mean many things, and I'm just going to leave the title ambiguous and just show you what I have, and maybe that will sort of, explain or give you an idea of what I mean by that. So a challenging read, what was that for me? Of course, it was this. And you have seen this before. So there we go. It's, of course, the 1001 Nights, the 3 volumes of the Penguin edition. So this was a challenge in the sense that it was a very long read. Obviously, it was not a challenge in the sense of following the stories and just experiencing the text. I really loved reading it. There was not a dull moment there. But for some reason, this is a personal thing, right? Long texts just give me anxiety, because I have a pile of books there waiting for me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I could be reading all of this other stuff instead of reading just one work or one text. But in that sense, it was a challenge, but not in the sense, as I said before, of just a reading experience, because I absolutely loved reading this book. And looking at movies, the challenge for me this year was Drive My Car by Ryosuke Hamaguchi. As I have said before, I absolutely love Asako 1 and 2. That is one of my favorite movies ever. You know, I like the concept of doppelganger and all that kind of stuff, so that has a lot to do with that. But for some reason, I watched Drive My Car once, and that could be also in the category that I would like to reread or rewatch, because I feel like I also missed something. Don't get me wrong, it's an amazing film, has so much going for it, but I felt that Asako 1 and 2 spoke more to me. Maybe it has to do with the length of the movie. You know, I feel that when a movie is like really long, there has to be some very good reason to make it that long, you know. And I can give you the example of, I don't know, the films of Andrei Tarkovsky, for instance, or even those long films by Kurosawa, you know, like Redbeard. That would be a great example, or The Hidden Fortress, you know, Ran, all of those movies. I watch them and I'm like, it doesn't even feel like I'm watching a 3-hour movie. But with Drive My Car, it kind of dragged a little bit for me. I need to probably watch it again. Another one by Hamaguchi that I have not seen is Happy Hour. For some reason, the topic doesn't really, you know, appeal to me. But, you know, the next time that I have like 5 hours to spare, I may give it a chance. So those are the challenges for 2022. Inspirational texts. Okay, and that can also mean many different things. I have had this copy of Corazón. This is a Spanish translation. This is Cuore, okay, by Edmondo de Amicis. It's a classic in Italy and also in Latin America, not so much in the English-speaking world, but my mother had bought this copy for me when I was a kid. I remember starting to read this book when I was maybe like, I don't know, 11 or 12 or something like that. This edition is from Lima, Peru, okay, so very interesting. And after all these years, I finally decided, okay, I was like, okay, I need to read this book. My mother has recommended it to me so many times, you know, let's just sit down and read it. And of course there are many scenes that could be considered corny. You know, it's written for kids, so you know it's very innocent in a way, very naive, but it was also very inspiring, and I just really enjoyed the reading experience. And looking at movies that I found to be inspiring, the one that I chose to represent this category is 9 Days by Edson Oda. Okay, this is a great film that is in dialogue with Afterlife. You know that movie by Hirokazu Koreeda? That is one of my favorite movies. But of course, Afterlife is about the afterlife. 9 Days is about the before life, if you will. So you have this group of souls who are applying to be incarnated, to be born in our world. You know, so they're desperate for the human experience in a way. So I thought that was a really refreshing look at the human condition, and also it's a great allegory. You know, it's a great allegory that uses also the concept of video. You know, you have these characters looking at screens and the lives of other people, you know, and trying to make sense of that, trying to help them or at least root for them as they experience the difficulties of the human condition. So those are the two texts that I chose as inspirational. Okay, so if you say, I have read The Great Gatsby, I have read The Catcher in the Rye, I have read Ulysses even, you say that and people know what you mean, right? But there is one book where you actually have to give an explanation. This year, I can say I have read Finnegan's Wake, and I just don't know what that means. Okay, I don't know what that means. I have read Finnegan's Wake, that's all I can tell you. I guess it means that my eyes have seen every single letter printed in this book. Okay, other than that, I cannot really tell you what it means. But, you know, I did the video on Ulysses when the centennial came back in, you know, at the beginning of the year. And after that, I was kind of in a joyous mood, and I said, okay, let's finally read Finnegan's Wake. This is a book, by the way, that I have picked up and put down many times before. So I was like, this is the year. I'm going to read it. I'm going to understand at least something, maybe one page, you know, that I can understand. And I'm going to do a video about it, and it's going to be fantastic. But that was not the case, as you can see, because I have not done a video on this, and I highly doubt that I ever will. Maybe someday, you know, maybe like many, many years from now I can read it again. Maybe I can read the English translation. And you know, maybe that's something that I can do, but for the moment I'm just gonna you know, leave it right here with this video. And a movie that produced a similar effect on me was Trainspotting, believe it or not. I had heard so many things about that movie, you know, oh, it's so graphic, you know, it's so disgusting, and all that, that for many years you know, I did not watch it because of that. I did not want to experience that, and at the same time, I had not realized that I had seen Requiem for a Dream, you know, so it was like, okay, I finally sat down this year and I said, okay, let's experience Trainspotting, whatever comes of the experience. And I must say that, I don't know, it just baffled me, you know, I still, I want to read the book, that's for sure, but the movie, I don't know, I just don't know. I do recognize that it's a great movie, that the technique is great, you know, the characters are interesting, the story is interesting too and compelling, but I don't know, I just don't know about these two, you know, yeah, I just don't know, let's just leave it there. A couple of eye-opening texts. When it comes to reading, that for me was Milan Kundera's The Art of the Novel. It's a very short book, okay, very short, but so full of insight. You know, it's one of those books where you're like, okay, I want to underline here. I rarely underline books because I feel that I am defacing them. What I have done in a couple of occasions is to actually I have bought another copy so that I can underline that copy. You know what I mean? But anyway, this one I could not underline because I had gotten it from the library. So I said, okay, I'm just going to read it quickly and just experience the text. And then at some point in my life, I will get a copy and then I will underline it so that I can own that copy and come back to it. I, of course, do not agree with every single thing that Kundera says in that book, but I think it's just an amazing text, especially if you're a writer, you know, or interested in the process of writing. So The Art of the Novel by Milan Kundera, fantastic, fantastic book. And movies, there were many, okay, that I could have chosen as eye-opening. Actually, 9 Days could have been eye-opening. It also could have been a movie that I want to rewatch, you know. But for this category, I'm gonna go with The Cremator, okay, by Juraj Herz. It's in the Criterion Collection, this movie from the Czechoslovak New Wave, about this guy who's a cremator, right? And he comes to believe that by cremating people, he is liberating them from the, you know, the horrors of the human condition. So it's just something else, okay? The cinematography, the approach, you know, the connection with German Expressionism, the grotesque, everything. I mean, just watch this movie because it's definitely worth your time and it's definitely an eye-opening film. So this part was difficult, okay, but I did decide to say, okay, this was the best work that I read this year and this is the best film that I watched. For the best, okay, it was very difficult to top this. So I'm just gonna go with The 1001 Nights. I mean, this is the most important text that I read this year. It is life-altering, you know, as I can tell by the fact that I did 6 videos on it. But really, you know, I cannot choose another text and say, you know, this is amazing. And the best movie that I watched this year is a movie that I have not mentioned yet, and that is Kenneth Branagh's Belfast. Okay, I thought that movie was amazing. If you have not seen it, I think it's great. It's one of those movies, it's a subgenre that I really like, which is telling history, right? Or looking at history from the eyes, from the perspective of a child. In a way, that is what The Tin Drum does, right? So the movie is in dialogue with Louis Malle's Au revoir les enfants, you know. It's also in dialogue with Hope and Glory, that movie, you know, from the 80s, I believe it was. So there are many texts that you can compare this movie to. It's about a kid growing up in the Northern Irish capital during the Troubles. So very autobiographical for sure. You know, this is Branagh's story. So that's all I can say. You know, watch the movie because it's definitely worth your time, and it's definitely one of those movies that reach your heart, and it's not melodramatic. You know, you will see if you watch the movie that every time something really tragic happens, right after that we get like some humor, right? So the filmmakers are consciously trying to downplay the tragedy, even though they are talking about a very tragic situation, and the director knows that better than anybody else because he experienced that. So, best book, The 1001 Nights. Best movie, Belfast. And finally, I wanted to add a little note about what I am looking forward to reading and watching. The book, there are many of them, but I decided to go with Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. Okay, this is just, you know, the book that has been like staring at me. You know, Cormac McCarthy right here in the spine has been staring at me for years now. I have it in a place where I see it basically every day when I wake up, and I'm like, okay, this is probably the year. Okay, 2023, I will try, I will do my best to finally experience Blood Meridian. And then the movie is a movie that I want to rewatch, and this is it. Okay, The Great Mouse Detective. I have seen this only once in my life. I went to see it with my father when I was, I don't know, like 6, maybe 5, 6, 7, something like that. And that is my only experience. It has been my only experience of this movie. So I found it at Walmart the other day. It was like $5. I was like, no, you know, it's just impossible that I have not watched this movie again. So I need to do that as soon as possible. It's like my soul needs it, you know. So I may share with you my impressions of this movie, watching it after such a long time. So anyway, that's my year of 2022 in review in terms of reading and film watching. Have you read any of these books or seen any of these films that you would like to comment on? Please let me know. I am always happy to read your comments and to hear your ideas on any texts that you have experienced. So if you have any questions, comments, recommendations, recipes, prophecies, anything, just let me know. Thank you so much for stopping by, and have a wonderful day.